The loss of Copeland in yesterday's by-elections is not a reason for despair. It's a reason why we must harden ourselves for the fight to come. When a party like the Tories can win a constituency held by a sitting opposition for 80 years, at a time when the country is in crisis, it's right to ask difficult and fundamental questions. But the most fundamental question is, why did Copeland vote for a party so cruel and uncaring that the elderly, the frail and the vulnerable are not just suffering under its rule, but dying in their tens of thousands because of its brutal and needless austerity cuts? Why would Copeland support a government that's presided over a country where over 1 million people are now forced to rely on food bank handouts every year to survive? Where parents go without a meal, sometimes for days at a time, so their children have enough to eat? A government which presides over a country where thousands of sick die after it's declared them fit for work, and where the homeless, cold and hungry, are now dying on our streets. A government which is willfully plunging the people in this country into levels of poverty not seen since the Victorian age. A government responsible for an NHS now facing a crisis in morale, funding and staffing, and where mental health services are at the point of imminent collapse. Who would ever support a government which tells the vulnerable, the frail and the elderly, there's no money for their needs, but when it has to bail out greedy, negligent banker friends, the money is always found? A government that refuses to accept the truth of the deadly effects of its austerity cuts. A government which openly forces children, the disabled, the unemployed into poverty so it can cut taxes for millionaires. A government responsible for soaring homelessness, child poverty and malnutrition. It would be so easy, wouldn't it, to use Jeremy Corbyn as a scapegoat, but now is not the time to be fooled by a biased right-wing media calling for his head. The fall in support for Labour goes way back to New Labour and its conscious decision to ignore our working class communities. And let's not forget the concerted efforts by certain members of the Parliamentary Labour Party to undermine Jeremy Corbyn since his first day as leader. Just shortly before the by-election, we saw Peter Mandelson proudly admitting he works every day to undermine Jeremy Corbyn. Throw in a continued media bias and the fact that Labour's candidate was a Remain supporter in a constituency where 60% of people voted for Brexit. She was a Labour right-winger and an opponent of Jeremy Corbyn. And last night's result in Copeland might not be such a surprise. These aren't excuses, these are simply reasons why every one of us must now rally to the support of the Labour Party and join with Jeremy Corbyn in his fight, not just against the government, but a biased right-wing media as well. It's time for all of us to stand up and join the fight for fairness, for justice and equality, because only by standing together and fighting together can we succeed. The lesson we must learn from Copeland's by-election is that every one of us must now play a part in the fight to come. If we all play that part, we can and will be victorious. Just look at Labour's success in Stoke last night. It's just the beginning, and it's that success that we now need to build on. Let's all just get back in the fight.